Power now? No power now? I'm not recording. I'm not recording.
You're not recording?
No.
Okay, right now I don't need
You took out the time to come. Let's appreciate why we're here. This is a chance to do what we didn't have an opportunity to do while the Rav was with us. To really express as a kehillah and as a community our feelings for Agoyin Rav Chaim and Rav Nechemya Malinowitz. The Rav will be hearing this Hespedim now, and Chazal tell us that it actually provides a certain nachas ruach for the nifter. Apparently this Hespedim was very important to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because there had been a very chashuva speech scheduled by a very chashuva speaker for this Motzei Shabbos weeks in advance. And which justifiably draws a large crowd. And when the Rabbanim heard about the timing, the Rabbanim decided that that speech should be cancelled in deference to the Hespedim, which is a very fundamental statement of Kabbalah Torah and Akras HaTorah of our community. It wasn't an easy thing to do, to cancel to cancel this speech, but the organizers didn't believe Shalim. When they called to cancel, the response was, they got through to the speaker's daughter, who told them, "I'm very, very sorry. My mother traveled to Chutz La'aretz and she forgot to notify it. The speech wouldn't have happened. Hashem had already canceled the speech in advance. The speech wouldn't have happened." And one of the Rabbanim of the community expressed it as follows. He said, Hashem wanted this Hespedim not to be interfered with. But Hashem provided an additional opportunity for the community of Ramat Beit Shemesh to actually make that statement of Kabbalah Torah. It would have happened anyways. But this way, our community made that statement of Kabbalah Torah, and halavai, this should be nachas ruach to the Rebbeinu Shalom, nachas ruach to the Rav, and Be'ezras Hashem, a step toward being goyder the pirza that was left with the ptir of the Rav. Agoyin Rav Nechemya Malinowitz, son of the Rav.
There are going to be a lot of speeches about different things my father, Rebbe Kaparas Mishkavoy, did. Whether it was with art scroll, as a dayan, as a Rav, as a Rebbe. What I would like to talk about is who he was. Not just what he did, but who was he and what made up his mahus. And what was he proud of? One time, I wanted to go somewhere. And he wasn't happy that I was going to go there. And he told me he doesn't want me to go. So he sat me down and he said the following. Some people think that the reason why the world was created was in order to give you reward in the world to come. How are you going to get rewarded in the world to come? You're going to suffer in this world. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put 613 problems in front of you. Hashem gave you 613 issues that you have to deal with to make it through life. And your job in this world is to navigate life without stumbling on any of the 613 problems that Hashem placed in front of you. He says that's not the definition. The definition of a Haredi is, and he says this is the real definition. I want to do more. I want to do the most that I possibly can. I'm not looking to try to get away from things to do. I'm looking to do as much as I possibly can. Torah is not a stumbling block. Torah is the way I'm striving for. Just a bunch of examples have been swimming around my head. When we were kids, there was a Vasika minyan in Motzei. And there was a person a professional guy, which printed out for us on that corner where the Vasika minyan was, he printed out the second Vasika was going to be. But then my father chapped that this is only if it's 40 degrees outside. And every 7 or 8 degrees, it changes. The nates changes, whether it's a little above, a little below. That diktuk b'mitzvahs. Somebody asked me, what are you doing? It's not such a big deal if you're off by a second. He says, no. We have to do the best that we can. We're not trying to do the minimum. We're trying to do the best that we can. I remember a bunch of times when we had Sheva brachas. At the end of the day, another Sheva brachas, another Sheva brachas, another Sheva brachas. At the end of the Sheva brachas, it was the last day in the afternoon. I was like, okay, everybody come quickly, come to the house. Let's make another Sheva brachas. Let's order pizza. Let's make another Sheva brachas. Yeah, he did all the Sheva brachas. No, I'm looking to do more. We're not looking to do less. We're looking to do more brachas. There was, when I was a kid, there was a Vasika minyan. Now, they didn't have a cloth. Now, my father really, really wanted it to lay in the flare from a cloth. He found this lady in Washington Heights, about a 35-minute drive, and every Friday, he would drive to her house, pick up the cloth, and she would never give him 2. He'd only take 1 at a time, and then drive back to Motzei. In the good weeks, there was a few Yeshayas in a row. He didn't have to travel so much, but he had no problem. He was excited. We're going to do it. Then, was a few years later, when we moved there to Yisrael, and he gave his first oneg in the shul over here, and he took this a step further, and he said, it's not just a pshat we're looking to do more. Toiras Hashem temima meshivas nafesh. Toiras Hashem temima meshivas nafesh means that it's also the best thing for me. Torah is the best thing for me. Yiddishkeit is the best thing for me. Mitzvahs are the best thing for me. When the Agudah organizations came out and they tried to change things, he would always say, if you would just follow the Torah, things would be best. Torah Hashem Tamimah Meshivas Nafesh means that this is the best way we could act. It's not just something that we were trying to do more. The best thing for us. And that's how we lived our life. Since I'm a kid, my father, would wake us up Basikin. Never once did we dream, like, what are you doing, waking me up at 5? We were excited. We wanted to wake up Basikin. When it snowed, we had a whole thing, and we would get the boots and we'd walk over a mile to school. And there was a time when it was a blizzard, and I was the only one that walked to school. I was so proud of myself. I was the one that my father took me and walked me to school. For example, sukkahs. Yeah. We used to have bamboo. Most people had bamboo. Then my father said, we're not having bamboo. We have to have real schach. Now, where do you get real schach? We would drive on the New York State Thruway, and there were these long reeds on the side, like a swamp. And we would go there with these big shears, and we would cut down schach, pile it up on the roof of the car, drive back home for a long time. It wasn't an easy drive, and then put it on top of the schach. What was wrong with that? Because we're trying to do more. And then eventually, then he was worried that it wasn't really hefker, and he went down to the park department, and he got a permit. Pesach. So Motzei, there was the big fire. There was the big fire at Motzei, and everyone would come, and everyone would make a fire. My father never wanted to go to the community fire. I'll show you what a real fire is. And again, he called the park thing, whoever was in charge, and he got permits to make a fire. And we made our own fire in our backyard, and he made up a song. Purim, I'm sure everybody knows about. In my family, it's called a matzav. Everything's a matzav. Everything's a big deal. Everything's a matzav. And the reason is because Torah is not just something, mitzvahs are not just something we're trying to do. Mitzvahs are a part of this, what we want to do. It's fun, it's meshivas nefesh, it's the best way to live your life. It's not just something we have to do and we're going to do it anyway. And this one was never heavy. We lived a life full of geschmack for Torah mitzvahs. And thinking back, we never were worried the fact that it was a burden. We never worried about the fact that it was hard. This is the way, it was a matzah, it was geschmack. Right, the whole family would go to the Kaisel for Erev Pesach and say the Kaisel cutting together, and the Pesach, say the cutting Pesach, and we would dance. Everything was a matzah. Because this is the way he raised us. Torah and mitzvahs are part of who we were. We all know that my father was extremely multifaceted, and he was able to do between all these different things. Now, how did he become like that? First of all, he was multifaceted in every area of Torah, but he also saw Torah in every single area. He was a very he had a wide range of ideas, and in every single one of these ideas, he saw Torah. Many years ago, there was a Kesher Shabbaton in Ramat Beit Shemesh. And he came and he spoke to my Yeshiva's Shabbaton in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and he said the following thing. There are a bunch of different ways for a person to develop Avos Hashem. The Rambam says you can look at the Bria. There are other ways a person could develop Avos Hashem. One of the ways a person could develop Avos Hashem is through Torah. Now, what does that mean? How do you develop Avos Hashem through Torah? So my father said the following part. He said it's not the pshat that when you love somebody, you learn everything there is to know about them. It's exactly the opposite. The more you know about a person, and the more details you find out about a person, that will create the love. For example, he said, if a person is walking the street and he hears Chas v'sholom, something happened to somebody, his first reaction is going to be, oh, I know that guy, I know what kind of car he drives. But why is that your reaction? I know him, I know where he works. I know his children. Why is that? It's because the more details you find out about a person, the more of a connection you feel to that person, and that's what's going to create a certain ava. Brothers, sisters, a wife, the reason why a person is the most ava a person has for a child or mishpacha or a wife is because every detail you know. And the more details you know, the more information, the more idea you have about that person, automatically that will create the ava. You know this, you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants about Sukkah, what he thinks about Baba Metzia, what he thinks about Pesach, what he thinks about Shor Shalabit V'Sapara. And the more details and the more ideas you have about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that will create a certain ava for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because now you feel connected. My father was a tremendous Baal Kishrin. He spent years learning. That learning created a certain avos HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore he was able to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything because the Yediyas HaKadosh Baruch Hu are everywhere. The more Torah you learn, and the more information you learn about something, the more connected you are. And therefore, my father was able to see Torah in everything. In every aspect that he learned, he was able to see Torah because he had those ideas. He had the ideas HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Torah, which created a certain ava. Eventually, my father hit the third shlav in his life, let's call it. The second shlav. The next shlav is when he started giving over his Torah. When he started giving over what he had and his ideas. And about 30 years ago, he became, most probably, from the biggest Marbitze Torah ever. Where he started giving over the ideas that he had, and the love that he had, and the clarity that he had in Torah to everybody. And he was so proud of it. He was so proud that the idea satira that he had, the learning that he did all the years, helped him have a certain clarity, which caused the art school to be able to be so clear and so precise. And we'd always say, people think they open the art school, they read the Gemara, everything is Mishmat. They don't realize how much Avodah and Amelis and discussing and going through happens in order to produce one book. And he was so proud of it because his years of working, Taka turned him into, now he was giving over. Now was a time where he was having Talmidim, now was a time where he was giving over everything he had. And as we all know, that was the same thing when he became a Rav. When he became a Rav, it wasn't there. He didn't become a Rav in order to answer people's shilas. He became a Rav in order to give over. Remember one time there was a person that moved far away. And he wasn't in the shul anymore. And the person called him up and said, "Don't worry, Rabbi Malinowitz. You're still my Rav. I'm going to still ask you all my questions." And he came home that day and he was so disappointed. And he said, "I don't understand. The person I'm going to still be his Rav. He's still going to ask me his questions? You mean he's still going to bother me? I'm not his Rav anymore. If I'm his Rav, then I would be there telling him what to do, being madrich him, pushing him, making him come learn. You mean you're still my Rav because you're still going to ask me questions? Thank you very much. That's not what I'm looking for." But this is because he looked at a Rav as the next shlav of his life. He looked at being a Rav as giving over those ideas of Torah, giving over his love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, giving over his emunah and his bitachon and everything he had. And that was the next shlav that he got up to. My father was multifaceted and he was multidimensional. But the reason why he was able to just pick himself up and move to Eretz Yisrael was because he also had the unbelievable ability to adapt to a situation. He had the ability to just move to Eretz Yisrael and just readapt himself with whatever was going on. The Eibishter put the family, the Eibishter put the shul in a certain situation, and I'm 100% sure that my father would say, now it's time to adapt to the new situation. Let's continue steiging. Let's grow. Let's take the people that we are and continue steiging, and let's adapt to the situation until we see him again very soon. Bila Molas Lanetzach.
I said there's still more seats up in the front and also downstairs with the video hookup. Anybody wants to be more comfortable? Rav David Stein.
Shus, family, Shus the Rabbonim. Last week's parsha starts off Vayimcha Yisora Meir Shana V'Esrim Shana V'Sheva Shana. Rashi, the famous Rashi says that it's because we wanted to say that Ben Kuf, Bas Kuf, Kebas Chof L'Chet, Bas Chof, Kebas Zayin L'Yofi. It's a very strange Rashi L'Chura. And we have to understand what Rashi wants to say, Al Pi HaMedrash. I don't know if it fits in exactly in Rashi, but I think that Pshat in the Rashi is that people have different perspectives in different times of life. And generally speaking, people do things in different times of life because they're convenient, they're easy, they come naturally, they have different wants and different needs. And so there are different people who have different ideas as they grow along. A person who's 70 years old wants different things than a person who's 20 years old. And a person who's 20 years old wants different things than a person who's 100 years old. And so the Torah wants to tell us that Sarah, her needs and her wants were all one. They didn't change from time because her needs and her wants were not something that was only convenient. It was something that she understood had to happen, and therefore she did things because it was something that was necessary, not because it was convenient. I knew Chaim for 60 years. He was my friend, my best friend. We went to school together, we learned yeshiva together. We did many, many things together for our whole lives. We separated sometimes, but we were always together b'nefesh, together with the love for each other. I want to ask Mechila from the Tzibra. I usually don't speak very long, but 60 years takes a long time. Everything I'm going to say today, I know firsthand, except for maybe one or two things. And I lived together with Chaim for many, many, many years. We had a lot of very great experiences together. I just want to share some of them with you and to explain, and I think to see who Chaim Zev Malinowitz really was. There's a medrash in Shirashim, it says, Ani k'choma, im chomo hi nivne olah tiras kesef. Im chomo hi ze Avram. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Im ma'amitu dvorim k'chomo, nivne olah tiras kesef. Natzilenu v'nivne also ba'olam. V'im delesu notzor olah ruach erez. If Avram Avinu was going to the Kivshon HaEsh, this is talking about the time when Avram Avinu was thrown to Kivshon HaEsh, and by Nimrod, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, if you're a choma, if you're like a wall, then I'll build a tiras kesef, I'll take you out of the Kivshon HaEsh. If you're like a delis, then not so luach eretz. In dalu b'mitzvahs umetal tel masov kidelis, not so luach eretz. Matzura zuein miskayemes el l'shah achas, kachin miskayim oleh el l'shah achas. And we have to understand, what is it talking about here? Avram Avinu was willing to go into Kivshon HaEsh. He was willing to be Motzei nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What kind of choma? What's the problem here? I mean, he's really willing to go to Kivshon HaEsh. What more can we possibly ask than someone who's willing to be Motzei nefesh al Kiddush Hashem? And I think we can understand it by Gemara Masechah Shabbos. In the Gemara Masechah Shabbos it says that sheker is something that only has standing on one leg. A shin is one leg, a kuf is one leg, a reish is one leg, because a sheker is something that's convenient, something that's easy, it's something that comes naturally, it's something that a person wants to do because it happens to be something that's easy to do at this time. Emes stands on two legs because emes is not something that's convenient. Emes is something that's true, that always exists, and it never changes in any way, and it doesn't make any difference how difficult it is. Emes is something that is always existent, and it always stays the same. And a person who wants to jump into Kivshon HaEsh, sometimes he does it because it's a fad, sometimes he does it because it may not be convenient, but it's something that he has all of a sudden a spiritual high, and he does something that is above and beyond what he really feels. A person who's emes, a person who's like a choma, a person who's like a brick wall, he's someone who doesn't change and he does things exactly the way he always did. And I always looked at Chaim as a choma. I just want to say a few stories here about the different stages in Chaim's life and how he was a person who was a choma. He stood and he was Motzei nefesh in so many different stages of his life. I met Chaim the first time in 3rd grade. We were 8 years old. I remember he came in, I was already learning in RJJ for a few years. He came in 3rd grade, and he was immediately the best in the class. He was muhshar, he knew everything. The Rebbe had always put the people, the students in rows. First row was the best, second row was second, third row was third, fourth row was fourth. He was always first row, first seat. He was always the best of the best. Came out always. And he wasn't only always the best, he also knew many, many, many things that nobody ever knew. I came from an American family, and I didn't have such musagim. Chaim's father, he was Talmud Chacham, he learned by Aaron and Kletz, and he had many, many different musagim. He brought me up, he gave me different things. Chaim knew, I think, every single Kol HaGodis Yisrael by heart. We used to call him the Torah Tamima kid. He knew everything, he knew every single Torah Tamima. He knew Medrashim, he knew things that were totally beyond my scope. And he brought us up, he gave us an idea and a musagim that we really didn't have. And we learned together. I lived in the same building, we were inseparable, we were together. I was half the time in his house, he was half the time in my house. And we did many, many things together. We did shliot together, we learned together, we had fun together. But he showed, even then, even when he was 8, 9, 10 years old, he showed an understanding and a feeling of, he wanted to do things, he wanted to be, he wanted to advance. His learning even then was something that was unbelievable. And then, a few years later, he had a very, very good class. We had many, many big time Chacham there. Leon Soloveitchik were in the class, and Shaul Tusky and Heshe Kaminsky. These people eventually were all going to be Rosh Yeshivas, but Chaim was still at the top of the class. And then, in about 9th grade, so Soloveitchiks went to Skokie, and the Altuskis went to Eretz Yisrael, and Heshe Kaminsky went to Mir, and his father said, look, now it's time to leave. It's not, you don't have the class anymore. And I assume they knew the Rosh Yeshivas in Philadelphia. Philadelphia at that time was probably the best yeshiva, probably the best high school yeshiva in America, and he said it's time to go to Philadelphia. And Chaim went to Philadelphia. He went to Rav Mendel Kaplan's shir in the second year in high school, which is totally unheard of. It never happened before. I don't know if it ever happened since. To go and to jump, to skip 2 classes was impossible. And everybody used to go to him and say, you know, you're a sophomore in Rav Mendel's shir. How did that happen? But after he came, he was still from the top of the class. It wasn't that he got in with protection and he couldn't manage. He managed very, very well. He considered Rav Mendel his Rebbe for many, many, many years. And he had a problem though, because at the second year high school, he had to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. He couldn't stay up very late. All the other Bachrim in his shir, they were already seniors. They could stay up as late as they wanted to. In Philadelphia, he didn't fool around. 10 o'clock was 10 o'clock, he went to sleep. So Chaim said to Rosh Yeshivas, he said, I want to learn, I have to keep up. Everybody else is learning it late. So he said, ain't shum bayah. If you want to keep learning, just get up early. Get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get up 4 o'clock in the morning, get up 5 o'clock in the morning, ain't shum bayah. And I assume they probably felt, you know, he needs to sleep. He's not going to get up so easily. As we all know, it's much easier to stay up late at night than to get up early in the morning. But Chaim was Chaim. And he used to get up at 5 and 4 and 3 o'clock in the morning. He used to meet his chavrusa, who would go to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He would pass, he would be going to sleep, he would be getting up. And that was the way he did things every day. Since then, I think he's gotten up just about every day in his life, very, very early. I think that's the beginning of his fasikin, that he was able to get up, he was able to have that Mesiras Nefesh to get up. It was a very, very difficult thing. Chaim finished Philadelphia and he went to Lakewood. He was never very, very happy with the learning. He always felt that there was something missing. He felt there was a certain endness in Torah that he just wasn't quite getting. The Rosh Yeshivas, they were very, very good, but there was something lacking. He had a brother-in-law who learned in a yeshiva called Iyon Talmud. Whoever heard of Iyon Talmud? Lakewood was a big yeshiva. That was right after Philadelphia. He was learning in Lakewood. And his brother said, look, you know, the yeshivas in Far Rockaway, in the summer, they have to leave Far Rockaway. It's right near the beach, and it's not shaykh to have a yeshiva there. And they go into the mountains during the summer, and you can go there for the summer. In Ben Azmanim, you go for Ben Azmanim in the yeshiva. And Chaim went to the yeshiva, he went to the shir, and he came out the first year, he called me up, he was totally intoxicated. He said, I never heard a yeshiva like that in my life. He went again and again and again, and he said, this is my place. This is the place that I have to learn. This is the Rebbe that I have. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life. And he came home and he told his father, I'm not staying in Lakewood, I'm going to Rav Abba. And his father said, B'shum panim v'oifen lo. I wouldn't hear of it. I was Talmud of Rav Aaron from Kletsk. What are you going to get from there? Lakewood is the best yeshiva in the world. All the best bochum in the world are learning there. You make connections, you get a shidduch, you'll be able to be a big Rosh Yeshiva. Go to Far Rockaway, whoever heard of such a place, whoever knows such a place. If you want to go to hear a shir once in a while, go once a month to hear a shir. But to go to learn there, b'shum panav ha'ofen lo. And Chaim Beles Breira, he listened to his father. He was very, very close to his father, he was very close to his parents. So he went back to Lakewood. And for a whole Zman he was there. And he went once in a while to hear a shir. But he understood that if he really wanted to get a derech in Lakewood from a Baba, the only way to do it is to stay there. So he went to Rav Moshe and he asked the Shaila what he should do. He said, on the one hand, I really feel that this is the place for me. On the other hand, my father is dead set against it. What should I do? And Rav Moshe said that go to Rav Baba. But he was afraid to say anything to his parents. He left a letter by his sister, and he went to Rav Baba. He took his stuff. And his father he was boiling. He couldn't know, he didn't know what to do with himself. And he said, I'm not going to talk to you again for the rest of your life. And he was very, very close to his parents. And it was something, it was so very, very, very difficult for Chaim to pick up and do things against his father, but he understood that this is what he has to do if he wants to be advanced, if he wants to advance in learning, if he wants to be the Talmud Chacham, if he wants to have ideas of Torah and avodas of Torah the way it has to be, then the only way is if he went to Rav Abba and learned. And he brought me also all over. Also, he went Motzei Shabbos. He went to Borough Park. I heard a shir. It was really, Rav Abba was unbelievable. He was someone who gave over ideas of Torah and avodas of Torah like nobody in the world. He was the most chashuv bacher in the Mir. He was the most chashuv Rosh Yeshiva in America. He had a small yeshiva, it's true, but the eichus of the yeshiva was unbelievable. And Chaim understood that. And even though most people didn't feel it was necessary to go there, some bacher from Lakewood would go there for his man. They would go there to do zmanim. It was already a kubal. But Chaim understood that to be a real Talmud Chacham, to understand, to have avodas of Torah at the sof, the only way to do it is to be mishamish, godel, and to be there always. That was the only way to do it. And he was makar of everything. His father, eventually, after many, many months, he understood that Chaim didn't do it for any other reason, only because of avodas Torah, and he relented, and he brought him back in, and everything was okay. But Chaim was willing to give up everything, because he understood what Torah was. It wasn't something that was convenient, it wasn't something that was easy, and he was willing to do things that were very, very difficult, because he understood what he had to do. He understood what Torah really was. He was a chom, he stood like a brick wall, not moving bichlal, because that was what was necessary. Chaim got married, and he became a dayan, the most chashuv what he did in America, in Motzei, and he was giving gittin. He was Moshe Nefesh for gittin. He did things that nobody else did. He stretched things until the very, very limits of halacha, but he would never go past the halacha. And there was a very big problem with gittin in America. It still exists, I guess, and that is that a person who doesn't want to give a get, he doesn't give a get. There's no way you're forcing a person to give a get. In Eretz Yisrael, you don't want to give a get, and you mechuyev to give a get, so you go to jail, and they force you to give a get to a certain extent. Sometimes the problem here also, but in America there was nothing to do. Communities were not what they once were. You could put a person into cherem, and he felt that it was necessary. And so there were many, many agunos around, and the feminists and the women's organizations all said, oh, these rabbanim don't care about women. They don't care what happens. They don't care if women are bound by their husbands who don't want to have them anymore, and they just want to have $100,000, and that's all. And let's try to get a bill passed in the government to try to take care of this problem. And somebody had this ingenious idea of making a bill that there was a way to split up the nechosim of a family, of a couple, when they got divorced. And there were 12 different criteria of splitting up the nechosim of a family, and they wanted to make one of the criteria the fact that one of the couples did not allow the other couple to get married. You couldn't say you have a get. There's a separation of church and state in America, and you couldn't say get a get. But one of the criteria of splitting up the nechosim of the couple was that if one of the couple, if the man or the woman would impede the other person to get married, then that was a reason for the judge to decide that the other side should get more money. And obviously, a person who was under that situation, he realized that it could cost him millions of dollars if he wouldn't give his wife a get. So it would make him understand that it's kedai to give his wife a get. And there's an ingenious idea. Everyone was happy. The Rabbanim were happy. Agudas Yisrael was happy. Everybody endorsed the bill. Great. The problem of Agudas is solved, and everybody was jumping for joy. And everyone was happy except for one person. That was Chaim. Chaim understood that there's a din of a get ma'usa, a get that's forced on a person by a non-Jewish court. Even if it's lahalacha, even if he's mechuyev to give a get lahalacha, the get is possible. And I really don't want to get into the halachas of get ma'usa. It's very, very complicated. I want to be Motzei Laz on the get in New York. But Chaim felt it was a terrible, terrible problem. It would be a problem not only for a person who didn't want to give a get, but it was a problem for every single get that was given in New York, because every lawyer would tell his client that if you don't give a get, you're liable to lose who knows how much money. and it's not kedai not to do it, and then all of a sudden everything becomes again mahusad, comes again that's forced by a non-Jewish court, whether it's halacha or not halacha, whether the person has to give the get or not have to give the get. And Chaim started to scream, he said, you can't do such a thing, it's impossible. And everyone said, why not? It's such a great idea and everybody's happy, and what are you starting trouble for? Why is it necessary? And Chaim called me up, he said, what am I going to do? It's impossible. You have to come to Eretz Yisrael, go to Rosh Hashanah, go to Rabbi Yosef, get letters. So he came to Eretz Yisrael, he went to Rosh Hashanah, and he went to Rabbi Yosef and he explained the whole thing. And they said, he's right, how can you have such a bill? It's impossible. How can Eretz Yisrael possibly support your thing? How can Rabbanim support your thing? We have to stop it. We went to every single dayan, wrote letters to every dayan in the country. And he brought letters back to America, and all of a sudden the Tzai started to turn, and Aguda understood that they made a mistake. They reversed their opinion, they reversed their endorsement of the bill, and the Rabbanim started to say it was a terrible thing. It was too late. The bill had already passed the assembly, and the bill became a law. But Chaim didn't spare any effort or any exertion to try to stop the bill. I think recently, and after the bill is passed, they tried to do something in order to overturn the law, that it may be a steer between church and state. And I think recently it was overturned. I'm not sure exactly what happened. They didn't follow it afterwards. But Chaim was willing to do everything. He didn't budge. He was like a wall. In Chomani, if I'm a wall, then Nivel Tiras Kesef. If I'm a wall, if a person is a wall, if he doesn't give in for anything, and it doesn't make any difference if it's difficult, it doesn't make any difference how he has to go against everybody else in the world, it didn't make any difference to Chaim, because he knew what the emes was. He knew where he had to be, and he knew where he had to go. And the fact that it was difficult, the fact that he had to disagree with everybody in the world, was just insignificant. It made no difference to him at all. The next story I really didn't know firsthand, but I heard from different people. He was in a bungalow colony, and Chaim was giving shiurim, he was learning, and somebody there saw someone who had an unbelievable tfisa, and an unbelievable speed. He understood, he realized, and he had a clarity, and a way to give over things, and a way to understand. And he was amazed by the person. The person happened to be Rav Pesach Goldman. And he called up, I was also the chief editor of Art Scroll. He told Art Scroll, look, you have to take this guy. This guy's unbelievable. And they said, who is he? Whoever heard of him? Motzei. They said, what do we need it for? He said, try him out. They sent them a few pages of Art Scroll. In an hour, they got it back with 50 hours. They were totally blown away. They couldn't believe a person could work that quickly and so accurately and so efficiently. It was impossible. And very, very soon, he became the chief editor of the Gemara Art Scroll series, the Shabbos series. Im chomahu nasal of tira shel kesef. We'll make a tira shel kesef, and he got a parnosa finally. It was very difficult before then, but the Art Scroll gave him a parnosa. Gave him a good parnosa. Gave him a possibility to do many different things that he was unable to do until then. And what does a normal person do when he has a parnosa and he's a dayan and he's a Rosh Koil and he has a shul and he has a vasikin minyan in the middle of Motzei HaKodesh? What more could one possibly ask for? And he decided, no, this is not what I want. I want to live to Eretz Yisrael. He understood that Motzei HaKodesh is not Yerushalayim HaKodesh. And he understood that even though he had everything going for him in Motzei, and he had COVID, and he had parnosa, and he had everything that anyone could possibly want, he still felt that he has to do more. He has to go to Eretz Yisrael, because building Torah in America and building Torah in Eretz Yisrael is not the same. And he wanted to take part in the building of Torah in Eretz Yisrael that was not possible in America. And so he picked his whole family up. And he had Shabbat Shmaya and Eshes Chayil, who not only agreed to everything he did, she stood by his side, and she was modayed him in everything he did. And wherever he went, she was always by his side. She was always helping him and she was his right hand in everything he ever did. She not only didn't she protest, she was modayed him to come. And his whole family came. I remember when they came, that meant he had to Lech Lecha, Mi'artzecha, Mi'moladetecha, Mi'beisavicha. He was very, very close to his family in America, but after he understood that this is what one had to do. And so if it had to be done, it didn't make any difference how difficult it was. It had to be done. This is the emes, this is Torah, chomani, nibna latira shel kesef. As soon as he had the possibility of moving over, he moved over. And it was supposed to have been very, very difficult for his family. Everyone here knows how difficult Aliyah is, but it made no difference because that was what had to be done. But he didn't want to only come here to Eretz Yisrael, in order to sit and do art scroll. He wanted to give over. He wanted to mechanech people. And what can he do? To be Rosh Shiva in Ponovich was pretty much out of the picture. And Hebron is also out of the picture. He felt what he could do was he could say a shir in a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. He went to Or Sameach, and I think they were afraid of him, and they rejected him. He went to Esha Torah, and Esha Torah, they're more open to different ideas, and they looked at him. He was somebody who they just couldn't exactly put into any box. They didn't really know who was how to feed him. He had an art scroll here with this person who was a genius, and he had all these talents. And Rav Berkovitz called me up and he said, do you think he can do it? He's obviously an extremely talented person, but do you think he can relate to Bali Tshuva? And I told him, I said, I don't know. One thing I know is that he has willpower that I don't know anybody in the world who has such willpower. And if Chaim wants to do something and he feels it's necessary, he'll make sure it's done. It's not something that Chaim doesn't take on things that are easy, that are within his possibilities. It says there's a posuk in the Torah. It says Lo b'shamayim shilu ha'isa b'shamayim ha'isa tzorech lalu sarana l'lomdo. The Torah was b'shamayim. You have to go up to the sky and take it down and learn it. That was what Chaim was. If something was difficult, he would do it anyway. If something was impossible, he made it possible. For Chaim to teach Bali Tshuva was something that was, I think it was in the realm of impossibility. He was so far ahead of everybody, of people who learned their whole lives. He was so far ahead of people who was steeped in Torah. To go down and to teach Bali Tshuva was really an impossibility. But he was able to do it because he was emes. And when people saw emes and they understood it, he was willing to go down and teach and do. And I think that everybody who was in Esha Torah at that time understood who Chaim was, he understood what Torah was. They got an understanding of where they were going and what they were doing. And I think he was mala all of his Talmidim from the beginning to the end. A little few years after that, I was teaching in a yeshiva in Rehovot. They had a yeshiva for Americans. There was somebody there in Binyamin Kwalwasser. He came to me and he said, we have this kehillah in Beit Shemesh, and it's a kehillah of B'nai Torah. We have people there who are big Talmidei Chachamim, and we can really do things with this kehillah. It's something that can be a very great thing, a great leader of Klal Yisrael. But we need a Rav. We need someone who can lead, someone who is above everyone, someone who people will look up to, people will understand, people will see the greatness of Torah, and he'll be so far above everyone that nobody will be able to open up his mouth and disagree. Disagree they will, but b'chol he'll be able to realize that they'll see in him the greatness of Torah. Do you know anybody like that? So I said, I know of only one person in the world, and that's Chaim Malinowitz. So he said, look, he was already, they already told us about him, but he said no. He said he's not going to do it. So I said, you know what, if you want, I can speak to him. And he said, good, go speak to him. So I went to Chaim and I said, look, there's a kid in Beit Shemesh. He said, yeah, I know, they asked me already. I said, look, they need somebody who's not a stam person. They need somebody who's great. They need somebody who knows Kol HaTorah Kula. They need somebody who is a Boki B'Shas. And somebody who can teach them, and somebody who can give over Torah the way it really is supposed to be given over with Havana and Hasmoda, and show a person what a true Ben Torah is, and bring people up to what they're really supposed to be. And the only person in Eretz Yisrael who can do it is you. So he said, I can't do it. I'm not fit to teach Balabatim and to be in the ladies' league. And I don't know where Chaim in the Redei Kadosh Tzarech, I can't paskin. V'shum panav oifen not. So I told him, Chaim, you know what? It's right. He said, I'm not a shtari dresser. To be a Rav, you have to wear a hamburg and a frak. Chaim was not a shtari dresser. I will admit to that. And theoretically, he really shouldn't have been a Rav. There were many things that were lacking in him that, that's not what a Rav is. He was very blunt, very straight. He would tell the person exactly what it was, exactly how it was. We argued and fought so many times, so many days and weeks and months in yeshiva. And I told him, Chaim, listen, I understand you're not a shtari dresser. I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you're not going to be either. Or Chaim, there were a day you don't know. I promise you, I'll be at your side. Any shayla you have, you can call up. He knew your Chaim knew they better than I did. I'll tell you right now. But he never moved. Nor Chaim knew they were asking me. I went to build a sukkahs with him because he didn't feel, he knew it better than I did, but he didn't feel that he knew it ad kidei kach, that he could just say and pass him and do, and he was always somewhere on what I said. And I said, L'gabei, speaking to Balabatim, you can do it, because this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And if this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, then anything is possible. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, if you stand by me, I'll do it. And he came to Bet Rapid Shemesh, and I think he opened up different parts of his personality that just didn't exist before. And how was he able to do it? Because I'm a person, what's driving, the driving force in my life is not the convenience, it's not things that I can do. I do things, I go above and beyond what I can possibly do. I go b'shamayim, im lo ben b'shamayim. So tzorich lalu sacher alone, the Torah is in the sky, you have to start jumping. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent siyata d'shmaya. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him siyata d'shmaya. And he was able to relate to people, he was able to come and open up, and I heard stories in Beit Shemesh that he was able to relate to people in a way that very, very rarely people are able to relate to people. Chaim was a very, very great personality. He was my friend, he was my best friend. I miss him very, very much. He was my friend, he was my mentor, he was my Rebbe, he was my leader. He showed me what Torah was. He showed me what being a really Reish Habayim was. He showed me that a person can go beyond himself and be something much, much greater. He can shape his personality. He can go beyond what his capabilities are and do much, much more. Tsar li alecha achi, v'amtoni ba'od. I loved Chaim. Same new place next to you, and in your table. I should be told to sit in the mechitza. You should be able to learn Yeshiva Shel Mal. You made it Yosher, you raised Chaim, your children, you loved and appreciated. For your kehillah, for your friends, for your relatives.
Rabbi said there are still a number of seats over here to the left. This table is also available. There's more seating downstairs with a video hookup. Rav Pesach Goldman, senior editor in Art Scroll, Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Mishnayos.
David Stein just spanned more or less all of Rav Nechemya Malinowitz's life. Well, I want to be mitzvah to two aspects of his life that I saw as an editor in Art Scroll and as a neighbor for 10 years. Since he came to Eretz Yisrael and lived in Ashkelon in Motzei in Yerushalayim. It might seem somewhat awkward if an Art Scroll editor speaks in Hebrew to an English-speaking audience. But actually I'm on the Hebrew staff, not on the English staff. And I'm much more used to speaking in Hebrew. So Hebrew will be the least awkward way. I'm sure you will excuse me, and some parts I will say anyway in English. באמת, אני לא רואה להספיק כזה אדם גדול. כולם מכירים את הגדלות שלו. מה אני לפניו? לעומתו. אבל מסיבות טכניות ביקשו ממני לייצג כאן הערב את חברת ארט סקרול, שהוא היה כל כך מסור למפעל הרבצת התורה העצום שלה. ולכן, אף שאני לא היה זה ראוי לא כלפי משפחתו ולא כלפי חברת ארט סקרול שהיה סרב לבקשה. כפי שהזכרתי, הכרתי את רב חיים בתור עורך בארט סקרול ובתור שכן במשך 22 שנה מאז שהוא עלה לארץ. באותו זמן בדיוק התחלתי לעבוד אז כעורך בארטסקול, בש"ס בבלי, בלשון הקודש. וגם היה שכן שלנו, בא לשכונת טונסדורף. במשך 10 שנים הראשונות שלהם, של משפחת מלינוביץ' בארץ, הם גרו בשכונתנו. בשביל הקהילה כאן בבית שמש, הוא היה דרוב. בשבילנו בארטסקול, לעורכים בעברית הוא היה הרב מלינוביץ', או באנגלית רבי מלינוביץ. ובשכונתנו היה רב חיים. ולכן, אמנם, בעיקר אני מייצג כאן את חברת ארטסקול, בשביל זה אני פה. אבל אני רוצה קודם לומר כמה מילים על מה שראינו מגדולתו בתור שכן. כי מה שראינו אצלו בתור שכן, זה בסיס לחלק גדול ממה שראינו אצלו כאחד העמודים העיקריים, הכי משמעותיים של המערכת של ארטסקול. שכונת טונסדורף, למי שמכיר, המשפחה בוודאי מכיר, רק אם גרו שם, ומי שמכיר, זו שכונה מאוד ישיביש. יש שם תלמידי חכמים גדולים, יש שם ראש ישיבס, וכולם, גם הביקורתיים ביותר, העריכו מאוד את רב חיים כתלמיד חכם, מאמר בתורה, כאיש אמס, בעל ערכים נעלים, שחי באמת על פי הערכים האלו. מצד אחד ראו את הרצינות שלו בתפילה, כשהוא התפלל ראו שהוא שקוע בתפילה וקיים, דע לפני מי אתה עומד, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ומצד שני ראו את ניצול הזמן שלו, הוא הגיע בימות החול בבית הכנסת עם דפים מודפסים בולטים מהכיס שלו, גליז, זה נקרא בשפה המקצועית באנגלית, של סוגיות שהיה צריך לכתוב עליהן ביקורת, פה מלא מכשירי כתיבה ופה הדפים הבולטים, ואם היה איזה כמה דקות בין גברה לגברה, או כמה דקות לפני שהתחילו ורחום במייריב, אז הוא הוציא את הדפים וצלל בסוגיה ורשם הערות על הגיליון. זה היה בימות החול, בחגים, בשבתות, אז תמיד היה, חוץ מהסידור, היה לו גם ספר או ספרים על הסטנדר, אם היה כמה דקות או כמה שניות, אם זה היה משניות או ספר אחר בעניין הדיון, תמיד הוא ניצל את הזמן, ולא שיסר את התור מהתפילה, כי כשהוא עמד להתפלל, כמו שאמרו מקודם, כמו שהזכירו, היה לו תפיסה מאוד מהירה, והיה לו ריכוז מאוד גדול, אז הוא יכל ממש בתור שנייה לעבור מעומק הסוגיה, לעבור לתפילה, ולשכוח מכל הסוגיה, ועכשיו הוא עומד לפני המלך ומתפלל. אחד מתושבי השכונה הוא יהודי צדיק עובד השם באמת, מהמתפללים הקבועים במניין בסיקין אצלנו בבית הכנסת, שרב חיים מצטרף אליו כשהוא עלה ארצה. הוא אמר לי שהוא לא יכול לשכוח שלפני כ-15 שנה רב חיים היה חוסן תרא בשמחת תרא. הוא עשה קידוש בבית שלו אחר כך. הוא דיבר שם לפני הציבור, אבל הוא דיבר כאילו לבן שלו, הוא לא אמר אם היה שם בן שלו, כנראה שהיה שם בן שלו, הוא לא אמר איזה בן, אולי יותר יפה. והוא דיבר כאילו לבן שלו והוא אמר, הוא דיבר על המעלה והרוממות של תורה, שהתורה היא לא כשאר חוכמות שיש בהן רק את ההשכלה בלבד ותו לא, אלא כל עניינה הוא דרך התקשרות על ידו אל הקדוש ברוך הוא נותן התורה. ובזה צריך לשים עיקר מעיינו וכיוונו וגישתו אל הלימוד. וסביב לזה הייתה כל השיחה שלו, ודיבר מתוך כזאת התרגשות, ואפשר היה לראות שדיבר מתוך עצם מהותו. והשכן סיים שהוא התפעל לראות יהודי שחי עם כזאת פנימיוס. זה מדובר על יהודי שבאמת חי עם פנימיוס, והוא התפעל לראות את הפנימיוס של חיים. שני דברים אלו שראינו אצלו ושמענו אצלו כשכנים, שהתפלל כעומד לפני המלך, ושלמד עם הרגשה של קשר על ידי התורה עם הקדוש ברוך הוא, מתאימים למה שהזכירו בלוויה, שהוא חי כל ימיו עם הקדוש ברוך הוא, ולכן הוא הרגיש את הקשר עם הקדוש ברוך הוא בתפילה ובתורה ובכל מה שהוא עשה. את הפנימיות הזו, שהוא חי כל ימיו עם הקדוש ברוך הוא, ובעיקר על ידי הקשר לתורת השם יזברך, אני רוצה לקשר למה שראינו אצלו בתור אחד מעמודי התווך העיקריים של הצוות של עורכי ארטסקול. בתחילה אני רוצה לקרוא מההקדמה לסטון חומש של ארטסקול שנוגע לעניין זה. והואיל וזה כתוב באנגלית, אני אקרא את זה באנגלית עם קצת תוספות שלי. The highest levels of spirituality attained by human beings were those of the office of Rav Yitzchak Berkovitz, who obeyed the Torah before it was given. Who told them its laws? Noah. Their own spiritual greatness dictated which deeds should be performed and which should be avoided. Their own holiness carried with it the ability to know what deed would enhance that holiness and what would profane it. Hashem and the Torah form one unity. When the patriarchs attained the lofty heights that brought them as close to Hashem Yisborach as human beings can come, they simultaneously became human manifestations of the Torah and understood how it was to be clothed in human deed. After the Torah was given, the oral law enabled Jews to properly understand the written Torah, to derive from the laws up the principles that should be applied to new situations. That human intellect is capable of divining a degree of Hashem's wisdom is one of His greatest gifts to man. As Rabbeinu Chaim put it, that man can sometimes give a logical explanation of one or another law is no proof whatever of the validity of the Torah. The Torah does not need to be legitimatized by man's approval. Rather, it is a tribute to the brilliance of human intellect that it is capable of understanding an aspect of Hashem's wisdom. And that brilliance itself is a gift from Hashem. That was the essence of Rav Chaim's hashkafa about Torah learning. And that is why Torah learning and teaching was such a major aspect of his life. המטרה של חברת ArtScroll היא להנגיש את דברי התורה להמון העם, בין באנגלית ובין בלשון הקודש, וגם אפילו בשאר שפות לעז שלא אני ולא רב חיים מתעסקנו איתם ולא מתעסקים איתם, אבל יש כאלה שמתעסקים איתם. אבל באנגלית ובלשון הקודש בהחלט, הוא ואני ורב חיים ושאר הצוות התעסקנו איתם ומתעסקים איתם, תוך כדי פירוש והסבר ברור, המובן לכל אדם, כדי שלימוד התורה יתפשט בכל שדרות העם, ולא תהיה מניעה לשום אדם הרוצה ליהנות מאור התורה, מחמת קושי השפה או מחמת קושי המושגים. על ידי זה כל אחד יכול להתחבר אל דבר השם ואל חוכמת השם יסבורך, וכביכול אל השם יסבורך עצמו, ועל ידי זה לזכור להתרוממות בכל מהלך ואורח חייו. וכן זכו מנהלי ועורכי חברת ArtScroll לחולל מהפכה ולהרבות בלימוד התורה אצל רבבות בלימוד התנ"ך, ש"ס בבלי ומשניות, וגם ירושלמי ועוד חיבורים. וכלשון מנהלי חברת ArtScroll בהקדמה לאחד מהספרים שלהם. The Hebrew and English Schattenstein editions of the Talmud Bavli have revolutionized Torah study for countless thousands in homes, study halls, offices, commuter trains, airplanes, wherever Jews have the desire to attach themselves to their Torah heritage. Tens of thousands of Jews who have not opened a volume of the Talmud for years have now become its daily students. הדברים האלה אמורים כאמור למהדורות שוטנשטיין של תלמוד בבלי, והוא הדין לכל שאר חיבורים היוצאים לאור על ידי חברת ArtScroll. וזה מתייחס למהפכה, הדברים שאני קראתי מתייחסים למהפכה, ל-revolution, כלפי המצב שהיה לפני 20 ו-30 שנה, לפני שה-ArtScroll התחילו בהוצאת המהדורות שלהם של הש"ס. כיום, לצעירים יותר שגדלו בעולם, שנפוצים בהם חיבורי ArtScroll, רואים זאת כדבר המובן מאליו, שכל מי שרוצה ללמוד ויש לו איזה קושי, יכול לגשת ללמוד את דבר השם, זו תורה, מתוך נעימות, ולהתקשר לקדושת התורה ולנויסטיין התורה עצמו כביכול. ומטרה עיקרית של ArtScroll היא שהדברים יהיו נאמנים למקור, כדי שישארו בקדושתם ובחיבורם להשם יסבורך, ולא חס ושלום לסלף את הדברים ולהלביש עליהם מושגים זרים שלא כפי שהתכוון נותן התורה, שבכך חס ושלום מנתקים אותם ממקור קדושתם. ולשם כך דאגו שצוות האורחים יהיו יראי שמיים ואחראים ורציניים, העושים את מלאכתם נאמנה, לתרגם ולבאר את דברי התורה באופן שגם מושגים קשים יהיו מובנים בצורה ברורה לכל אדם ונאמנים למקורם. ובכל המפעל העצום הזה יש לרבי מלינוביץ, כפי שהיה קרוי אצלנו ב-ArtScroll, חלק ענק ועיקרי, והוא השקיע בזה חלק ניכר ממיטב כוחו ושנותיו, מתוך יראת שמיים אמיתית ומתוך אחריות. הוא ראה זאת כשליחות וכמטרה עליונה, לאפשר לכל יהודי להתחבר לקדוש ברוך הוא על ידי התורה. ולכן הוא התמסר לזה כל כך בעמל וביגיעה שאי אפשר לתארם. אני רוצה לציין שבלוויה דיברו מצד הקהילה שלו כאן, ואמרו שהיה מסור לגמרי לקהילה בכלל ולכל אחד מהקהילה בפרט, והיה זמין להם כמעט בכל שעות היממה. ודיברו מצד המשפחה ואמרו שהיה מסור לגמרי למשפחה. מישהו היה אמור לדבר גם כן מצד הארצקול, רבי ישראל שמחה שור, שיאריך ימים מראשי המערכת שלנו היה כאן, ותכנן לדבר, אבל לא התאפשר לו מחמת קוצר הזמן. אבל אני באותו זמן חשבתי לעצמי, הרי אנחנו בארצקול הרגשנו שהוא היה מסור לגמרי אלינו, והיה 100% איתנו תמיד. אז הוא היה 100% מסור לקהילה שלו, ו100% למשפחה שלו, ו100% לארצקול. וזה מה שאמרו בהלוויה, שכל יממה שלו היה כמו 22 שעות. וזה בגלל שהיה לו כוחות עצומים, כמעט לא מצויים אצל שאר בני אדם, וגם כישרונות עילויים, כמו שהזכירו קודם, וניתנו לו במתנת אלוקים, והייתה לו הרצינות והאחריות והיראת שמיים, להיות מסור לגמרי לכל דבר שלקח על עצמו. הוא השתמש בכוחות ובכישרונות העצומים שלו למטרות שהיו חשובות בעיניו, ומתוכן הרצת התורה עצומה על ידי חברת הארצקול, כיוון שהוא ידע שעל ידי כך יהודים יהיו קרובים אל התורה ולהשם יזברך, כמו שהזכרנו. אני רוצה לקרוא כאן כמה שורות שכתב לי רבי יחזקאל דנציקר, הרדיטוריאל דירקטור, שעבד ביחד עם רבי מלינוביץ מתחילת עבודתו בש"ס שוטנשטיין באנגלית. והקדים לפני כן לבאר מושג אחד שמוזכר בדבריו, כדי שהדברים יהיו מובנים. בארצקול יש תפקיד הקרוי reader. זה תפקיד של מבקר, שתפקידו לעבור על החומר שכתבו האורחים ולהעיר להם הערות, להבטיח שהדברים יהיו מדויקים וברורים דיין, וכתובים בשפה המובנת לכל אדם, ושלא השמיטו נקודות חשובות בהסבר. הרידר הראשון של ש"ס שוטנשטיין, כפי שהזכירו את שמו מקודם, של ש"ס שוטנשטיין באנגלית היה רב הרשל גולדוורד, זיכרונו לברכה, והוא זה שהביא את רב חיים מלינוביץ למערכת של הארצקול. ואלו דברי רבי יחזקאל דנציקר אודות רבי מלינוביץ. He joined the project when Reb Herschel Goldman Zichrono Livrocha got sick and could no longer keep up his end of the work. Rabbi Malinowitz was the head of a kollel in Motzei at the time, Rav of the Vasikin Minyan there, and a dayan on a base team. When Rav Goldman passed away, Rabbi Malinowitz took more and more achayas upon himself and somehow found the time to put in extra hours to make sure no project was held up. This was on the English Gemara. Within a couple of years, he became the reader who did the most. As new projects came along, Hebrew Gemara, Yerushalmi, and a number of other works, he took on being a reader on them as well. He juggled 4 and 5 projects at one time, and still found time to be a full-time Rav, etc. When a project was getting close to a deadline, he would work round the clock to finish everything he needed to do. Rabbi Cheskel says, I do not remember any project being held up on account of him, but I do remember one Gemara deadline where he worked an entire week sleeping just 2 hours a day and still making incisive comments on Thursday as he had on Sunday. He would send faxes and emails at all hours of the night and then send one saying, quote, I will not be available for the next 2 hours because I need a little sleep, unquote. They say, Rabbi Cheskel finishes, they say he was 67 when he passed away, but crammed so much into a day that he really lived about 120. כל זה הוא עשה בכוחות ובכישרונות העצומים שהיו לו במתנת שמיים, ובגלל הרצינות שלו והאחריות שלו וההכרה שלו בלימוד התורה ובהרצת התורה כערך עליון, לקשר כל יהודי לקדוש ברוך הוא נויסן התוירו, וזה מה שראינו אצלו. ועם כל זה הקהילה שלו כאן ומשפחתו ראו אותו מסור וזמין בכל שעה לכל אחד מהם. אלו דברים שמי שלא ראה אותם לא היה מאמין שבן אנוש יכול לעשות כל כך הרבה. הם אפשר יותר כמה עמל, ידיעה וכוח הוא השקיע בכל אלה. אפילו מה שהוא עשה עבור ארצקול לבד היה כמו עבודה של 3 או 4 אנשים, מלבד מה שהוא עשה בשביל הקהילה שלו והמשפחה שלו. בנוסף לכוחות הבלתי רגילים שלו, מהכישרונות האלוהיים שהייתה לו תפיסה מהירה מאוד, כמו שהזכירו, ותפיסה חדה ובהירה. הייתה לו גם דרך הבנה ייחודית בתורה, שבגללה הוא התאים מאוד דווקא להרצאת התורה של חברת ארצקול המון העם, ואני מתאר שגם בשביל זה הוא התאים גם כן להיות מגיד שיר בור שמח כמו שהזכירו קודם. ראשית, הישרות שלו הייתה כמו סרגל. לא היה שייך שיעבור אצלו משהו שלא 100% ישר, וגם הייתה לו בהירות גדולה מאוד, ולא היה אצלו מושג של לומר דברים שהם נראים בעלמא, אלא הכל היה down to earth הבונה, ולא הבונה שטחית. זה היה העיקר אצלו, ה-down to earth הבונה שהתאים באמת להסביר מושגים קשים ואולי מופשטים באופן שכל אחד יכול להבין אותם ולמשש אותם בידיים. והוא ידע, לא רק שהוא ידע גם להגיד את זה בעצמו ולכתוב את זה באנגלית, בעברית הוא לא היה יכול לכתוב את זה כל כך טוב, אבל כשכתבו בעברית הוא ידע לבקר את הדברים, שהדברים יהיו כתובים בצורה כזו, שזה בדיוק מה שמתאים להנגיש את דברי התורה להמון העם. ואת הכוחות שלו והכישרונות שלו הוא השקיע עבור הרבצת התורה של חברת ארצקול לשם שמיים, למען השם יזברך ותוירוסו למען עם ישראל. בדירה שלו באונסדורף היה לו חדר לימוד מיוחד, ששם הוא עסק בעבודה שלו בארצקול. הוא לא קרא לזה חדר לימוד או חדר עבודה, not a study, not a work room, אלא אמר שזה קודש הקודשים שלו. כך הוא אמר לי, שמעתי את זה ממנו בוודאי פעם אחת, מסתום כמה פעמים. מתי שהזדמנתי אצלו בבית, ומשום מה, הוא לא נתן לכל אחד להיכנס, אבל הוא היה סיבות אולי שנתן לי להיכנס בשביל העבודה. הוא אמר, זה קודש הקודשים שלי, אף אחד לא יכול להיכנס אם לא קשור לעבודה בקודש הקדושים. כי הוא התייחס לעבודה שלו בארצקול כעבודת קודש. וכמו שבקודש הקודשים היה ארון הקודש, שהיו בו את לוחות הברית שניתנו למשה בסיני, שם היה שורש התורה בעולם. כך מהחדר שלו יצא אור התורה לכל העולם כולו כפי שניתנה מסיני. וכשם שקודש הקודשים היה עיקר מקום השרוס השכינה בישראל, כך הוא הרגיש שהמקום ששם הוא עוסק ברבוץ הסטוירה לכלל ישראל, בצורה שהוא עסק בה, באופן שכל אחד יוכל להבין, הוא מקום השרוס השכינה, והיחס שלו לעבודה בארצקול היה בהתאם. ובקודש הקודשים שלו על השולחן הענק היו ערימות של ספרים. כשהתחיל מסכת חדשה בשביל ארצקול, הוא קנה בחנות את כל הספרים שקיימים על המסכת. הוא פתח אותם תוך כדי לימוד הסוגיה כדי שלא יפסיד אף נקודה שצריך לראות. ובלילה במעט שעות שהוא ישן, במקום לסגור אותם, לפתוח מחדש ביום, הוא כיסה אותם בסדים, וכשגמר את המסכת, וכמובן למחרת, אז הוא פשוט נוריד את הסדים והמשיך ללמוד מהנקודה שהוא אחז. כשגמר את המסכת לא היה לו מקום בבית לכל הספרים הללו, אז הוא תרם אותם לבית כנסת. נקודה נוספת, למרות שהוא היה מאוד תקיף בדעתו, היה גברא שאפשר היה להיות מסתפינה מיני, והיו כאלה מסתובב שהיו מסתפינה מיני, הוא תמיד נזהר עם האורחים לכתוב את הביקורת שלו בצורה שלא יפגע בהם חס ושלום, דבר שמאוד בקלות יכול לקרוא בלי שימת לב, וכבר היו דבורים מאוילו, אבל אצלו זה לא קרה, לפי מה שאני ראיתי זה לא קרה פעם, ואף פעם לא שמעתי גם תלונות מאחרים. ולא רק שהוא נזהר שלא לפגוע, הוא גם כתב בלשונות של כבוד, הוא היה פותח הערה לפעמים, כבודו, בלשון כבודו, בלשון כך, כשהוא כותב בגוף שלישי, בלשון מכובד, כבודו כתב כך וכך, אבל וכולי. וזה תרם מאוד לאחדות ולנעימות השוררת בין כל חברי המערכת של חברת ארצקול, שגם זה תורם להצלחת המפעל העצום הזה. זה ודאי הוא עשה מתוך עבודת המידס שלו, זה בטוח, אבל זה בהחלט תרם מאוד לעבודה של כולם בחברת ארצקול. משום כך, בוודאי היה, אני אומר, בגלל שהוא היה כל כך תקיף, ואף על פי כן עצר בעד עצמו, שלא לפגוע חלילה באף אחד, ברור שזה גם כן בא לו בעמל והגיע, זה לא היה משהו ככה שנשלח לו מהשרוול. זה בוודאי היה חלק מהעבודת השם אצלו והוא עבד על זה. משום כך יש לו חלק עצום בכל המפעל הכביר הזה של ארצקול, והזכויות של רבבות לומדי התורה שהוגים במהדורות של חברת ארצקול שהוא נטל חלק עיקרי בהם, ושחותמו מוטבע בהם עולות איתו לעולם האמת. הוא הגיע לשם עם רבבות דפי גמרא, בבלי וירושלמי ומשניות ועוד. שהרי כל מה שלומדים, רבבות הלומדים בחיבורים האלו נזקפים בחלק גדול לזכותו, וכל מי שימשיך ללמוד במהדורות אלו יוסיפו לו זכויות, וזכויותיו תלכנה ותרבנה לנצח נצחים. אני רוצה להוסיף עוד דבר אחד גם שהיה לי אישית איתו. מה שהוא עשה בשביל חברת ארטסקול לא היה רק בפרויקטים שנתנו לו לעבוד בשבילה. אני עבדתי גם כן על הסטון חומש, זה נקרא השודשטיין חומש בלושן הקודש, והוא לא היה חלק מזה בכלל, אבל היו לפעמים דברים שאני הייתי העורך הראשי בזה, אני הייתי כאילו המבקר, ואני הייתי העורך הראשי, והיו דברים שהסתפקתי אם זה כתוב בצורה כזו שזה מתאים באמת לציבור שזה מיועד עליהם, ופעמים לא הרבה מאוד, אבל פעמים רבות אפשר להגיד, במשך 5 שנים שעבדנו על זה פניתי אליו וביקשתי את העצה שלו, ותמיד הוא ענה לי בתוך זמן קצר עם התפיסה המהירה שלו ועם התפיסה הנכונה שלו, מה מתאים ולא מתאים, אם זה מתאים או לא, והוא לא ניסה להתחמק מזה בגלל שזה לא הפרויקט שלו. כי הוא הרגיש, זהו, זה צריך את זה בשביל עם ישראל, אז צריך. אז יש לו את כל הזכויות העצומות האלה, ואיתם הוא עולה למעלה במקום שלו, השמור לו בגן עדן, אבל הסילוק שלו הוא הפסד גדול לנו. מלבד מה שהוא הפסד למשפחה ולקהילה שלו, זה הפסד לעם ישראל כולו, הפסד של עמל התורה שלו לשם שמיים, ואור התורה שהיה ממשיך להפיץ לכלל ישראלים, וזכינו שהיה ממשיך הלאה בעבודתו. וגם בארטסקול עצמו אי אפשר יהיה למלא את מקומו, זה לא שייך. אפילו אם ייקחו כמה, כמו שאמרתי, 2, 3, 4 אנשים שיעשו את כמות העבודה שהוא עשה, זה עדיין לא יהיה באותה איכות. אני לא מכיר מישהו בכלל שיכול לעשות באיכות שהוא עשה, עם סוג התפיסה המיוחדת שיש לו, שזה היה כל כך ייחודי. ועל זה יש לכולנו נצטער צער עצום. עד כאן דיברנו מה שנוגע לשבחו. אבל מה אנחנו ניבדל החיים יכולים ללמוד מדרכיו? הרי הוא היה עילוי, הוא בעל כוחות כמעט על אנושיים במתנת שמיים. ומה כל זה שייך אלינו שאין לנו כישרונות וכוחות כאלה? מה שאנחנו יכולים ללמוד מדרכיו הוא שנתמסר כל אחד מאיתנו לכל מה שאנחנו עושים בלימוד התורה ובשאר שטחי היידישקייט, בכל הכוחות והכישרונות שניתנו לנו, כל אחד לפי מה שהוא, מתוך הכרה במעלה העליונה של התורה וקדושתו ומצוותיה, ומתוך רצון להיות קרובים לקדוש ברוך הוא, וכל אחד מאיתנו שילמד זאת ממנו ויישם את זה, תהיה זאת זכות נוספת לעילוי נשמתו. בוודאי, בכוח הזכויות העצומות שהוא מגיע איתנו, כמו בגן עדן, הוא יהיה מליץ יושר עבור משפחתו, עבור הרבצן שלו החשובה, שחלקה רב בכל מפעלי חייו. ידוע שאחרי כל אדם גדול עומדת אישה גדולה, ובוודאי שהגדלות שלו היא גם הגדלות שלה. וכמו שאמר רבי עקיבא לתלמידיו אודות אשתו, שלי ושלכם שלה הוא. גם רבבות דפי הגמרא והמשניות ועוד, שלומדי מהדורות ארטסקול הנזקפים לזכותו של רבי מלינוביץ, הם גם של הרבצן שלו. וכן ארטסקול וכל עם ישראל חייבים לה הכרת הטוב על החלק שלה בהרבצת התורה של בעלה הגדול. שיהיה מליץ יושר עבורה, שתמשיך עוד שנים רבות ללוות את משפחתה והדורות הצומחים מהם בבריאות ובנחת לקדושה. ומזה תשאב כוח ונחמה על הצער של האובדן של בעלה הגדול. והוא יהיה מליץ יושר עבור כל הילדים ומשפחותיהם שימשיכו ללכת בדרך שהנחיל להם, ועבור קהילתו שהיה כל כך מסור עליהם. ויהיה מליץ יושר עבור כל חברי הצוות של חברת ארטסקול, שניבדל כולנו לחיים ארוכים, אמן. ויהי רצון שיקוים במהרה בילה המובס לנצח, ומוח השם אלוקים דימו מעל כל פונים, ונאמר אמן.
There are places to sit downstairs with a video hookup if anybody will be more comfortable that way. Rabbi Joel Padowitz, Maggid Shir in the Shul, and Talmud of the Rav for more than 20 years.
I'll ask for mechila from the tzibur and the family for a number of counts. First is my heart is really still broken and I'm pretty fragile, so if I begin to cry, you'll just give me a moment to gain my composure. You will regain your composure and it'll be okay. We'll get through it together. The second is I was asked to speak until Rav Yitzchak Berkovitz arrives, so that means you'll forgive me if I speak long or short, as the case may be. And the third is I'm going to, because of nature, I don't know how long I'll be speaking for. What I'm going to say is probably not a appropriate Hespedim as much as Rav Nechemya did to capture the most of the Rav, and Rav Stein did to capture the whole spectrum of his life. I'm going to give you small things, anecdotes, perhaps silly things even that as a standalone Hespedim would be unsatisfactory, but to add color I think could be very, very valuable. And as far as I understand, the point of a Hesped is twofold. First is to really appreciate what we've lost, and second of all to really understand what the Nifter stood for and his legacy, so the legacy can live on. So I will try my very best to convey some of that, of what we've lost and what the Rav stood for, so as Hashem, his legacy can and will continue. So I was open to be the Rav's Talmud and Charus for 22 years since he came to Eretz Yisrael. And I started Eish Torah. So the Rav was Yesodos, fundamentals, basics, was really essential to the Rav. So when he came to Eish Torah, just like in Rav Sameach, they didn't really trust him. They didn't want to let him in. And Rav Noach Weinberg, so Rav Noach asked him what I think Rav Noach asked every perspective, Eish Hayri, which is, can you tell me the Sheish Mitzvot Tamidias? So that played into his strong suit, and Rav Malinowitz was certainly able to tell him. The truth is, the emissaries were Malinowitz actually knew 5 out of 6, because he conflated the asay of the Yichud Hashem with the love of the Lo Yecha, but that was good enough for Rav Noach. So they let him in, and but they were tentative on how much to trust him. So the full extent of his initial exposure was just to learn with me, one person. That was a trial, I guess. So Rav Malinowitz, understandably, if you knew him, what did we start learning? We learned Tur, Beis Yosef, Hilchos Talmud Torah. Not Gemara, that was the first we learned. Every Beis Yosef, I think, and Hilchos Talmud Torah. Because that Yesodos, everything had to have a foundation, everything had to be built from the bottom up. Which is why he went to Rav Abba's, because he really felt that in Lakewood he couldn't get to the bedrock. He wanted to understand the bedrock. You know, it's curious, he had one of the people who he admired, in a way, was this fellow Richard Feynman. So Richard Feynman was a scientist. He was a Jew, as it happens, but he was an atheist. But Feynman, who was perhaps the greatest scientist of the 20th century after Einstein, so he was famous he developed something called quantum electrodynamics, pretty complicated stuff, and he had developed the Feynman diagrams, which was a way to with a schematic, with a picture, convey something rather abstract and difficult. And that is what Rav Malinowitz loved to do. In every sugya he felt almost compelled to map it out with cute little diagrams. I think much as you'd sort of imagine that you would diagram a sentence from grade school, he would actually diagram each sugya to make sure that all the pieces fit together. You understand every component and the mechanics of the sugya to make sure it was clear. And that's what he told me to learn, just like that, from the beginning, from the ground up. Later on in my life, I had students of my own, so I brought one of my talmidim to his sukkah. He loved that sukkah. Whichever boys built him that sukkah on Nichal, what he called his Chazanish sukkah, he loved that sukkah. The Rav as a child hated sukkahs, because he had to take his little turn in the Lower East Side, and then he would have to leave, so he promised himself when he has his own sukkah, he'll stay there. And the Rav had great simcha in that sukkah. So once I came to visit him in the sukkah, with my talmidim, and the Talmud was at Eish Torah, and he was troubled why he was just started there and why he was spending so much time learning Gemara. So he asked Rav Malinowitz, how come it's on Gemara, it's so technical, it's very detailed, it's such a good picture. So I spoke out of turn, and I said, I'll tell you the truth, if it were up to me, Talmidim in Eish Torah wouldn't learn Gemara for a whole year. So the Rav said, what, a year? At least 2. If I would sum up the Rav in my words, I would paint the picture of an Eved. I don't know if you would use those words, but we don't have much experience with Motzei, with real avadim. One of the Rav's favorite books, as it happens, was a book called Every Man a Slave, which portrayed what it would be like to be a real slave. And he loved that book. He bought me a copy to read. And if you're a slave, if you're an eved, so of course, what does your clothing mean to you? What does your money mean to you? You don't have a yad of your own, so it's a pass-through. You're just doing your thing. And that really, I think, was his mind frame. I don't know if even he would have said it himself, but I really believe that. An eved. If roll call is at Nate's, the roll call's at Nate's. You wouldn't miss it because you got to be there. And he would say to me, if you had a plane to catch, you'd be able to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so you got a Shabbos to go to Nate's. It was pasha by him. One of my earliest memories of him, this sums it up. We were davening Marav. There at Be'er Shmuel, I think it's called the shli there on Sorotskin. And it was right before Baruch Friday night, and the Shlitzer was about to start, and there's this little boy jumping up and down a little bit, pulling at the leg of the shop, and he's ignoring him. The father's ignoring the son. And it's evident to all of us standing behind that the child needs to go to the toilet. And he's jumping up and down, do you remember? And seconds before it happened, before Baruch, so you see this little river going down in a puddle forming beneath. And we're all staring in disbelief, and the Rav, without batting an eyelash, took off his hat to throw to cover the urine, because he knew you can't say Darsh B'Kedusha. Understand? And the Shabbos hat, that was a Rav. He berated himself that he was lazy. He said, I know what you think. You think, Rav Nechemya, how you lazy, you work on the clock. But he said he knew in his heart he was lazy, and he really felt he had to fight that his whole life. And everyone knows he famously didn't sleep very much. You heard the backstory there. He developed, when I learned with him, so he said, I'm going to sleep for 5 minutes now, after 5 minutes, just say Rav Nechemya, and I'll wake up. But he developed a technique, if he didn't have me to wake him up, his technique from I don't know how long, from as a child. He would rest by closing his eyes, and he would put his tongue between his teeth, and he would doze off. Because when you fall asleep, your jaw closes, and you would then bite on his tongue, which would wake him up, so then you'd get back to me again. That was his technique for waking himself up when he needed to take a rest. We had it was said from this podium not long ago that friends, quoting someone, said that friends are for bored people. Now, Rav Malinowitz would not have accepted that. He really cherished his friends very much. He really had a phenomenal number of friends spanning the globe. He talked fondly of BTYA back in Motzei and Solomon in New York, and life here in Eretz Yisrael, and he really deeply cherished his friendships with Rav Stein and Dr. Chaim back in Barak. They were like, it would be hard for me to overstate how much he cherished those friendships, and he invested in them. And every time Dr. Chaim came to town, they'd go for breakfast together, and they had that same disgusting shalom they sent back and forth now for how many decades amongst themselves. And really, I'm telling you, one of the highlights of his life, Rav Malinowitz' highlights of his life, was when Dr. Chaim, he made a scene on Shabbos not long ago, and the three of them, like the boys, they took a Shabbos together to celebrate in the near Zion. That was one of the highlights of his life, for sure. And he took a real pleasure in his friends. He would always, whenever I asked him a question, he'd say, "Ask Rav Stein." He loved his friends, and he kept an astounding number of deep. It's really astounding to me how many deep relationships he maintained. It's hard to imagine someone so busy, but till the very end, he really invested in those relationships. They're really important to him. Same with his family, really. I think, as much as he took joy in the siyum for Dr. Chaim, it's hard for me to understate how much he was looking forward to David Maliноwitz's siyum on Shas, which is coming up next week. Really, it would have been it would have been really his even bigger highlight of his life. He was so proud of David. He was so proud of all the children. He was so proud of his children. Really, and he invested, just as he had invested in the friendships that he maintained. He edited a family newsletter that would go out to keep the family together, because because the family was spread out. It was difficult for him. Someone in Chutzlaretz, someone here. And it was difficult for him, really. It pained him as some of his children were ended up going to Chutzlaretz. This was difficult, but he never missed a simcha as far as I know. And the Rebbe can also go back even for siblings and nieces and nephews. Really, he missed it. His heart and soul of his family. He kept in his pocket, this is something amazing to me, he kept in his pocket a photograph, in his wallet, a faded photograph of, I think, a great uncle of his. He held this uncle had encouraged his father to leave, to escape Europe before the war, and the uncle didn't survive. So he felt there was no one there to remember him, the uncle. So he kept a picture of this great uncle's picture in his wallet till the end, every day. So someone should be mindful of this uncle. I want to speak about just briefly about the women of the family, of his family. It's worthy of mention. He really so admired his mother. He thought she had a tremendous influence on him. He was deeply grateful and fond of his mother in an extraordinary way. And his wife also. His wife, he really respected his wife, and he would speak things over with her. He was such a wise woman. He wouldn't make decisions without discussing her. Many discussions, many decisions. And his sister, he had an older sister, has an older sister. He told me 100 times how much Akaras Tov he had for her, for yielding, that the sister sort of responsible for saving one of the children. It's a story. But he held she was such a wise woman. He referred people to her. All of them, really. It's something special. And the truth is that his daughters also, he would say, because I was a chavrusa and learned many years, and the girls had, like everyone had, children had problems. He would speak over things with me, like what's going on with the family, and he would process them. And so he would say, it's like, it's very difficult, but Rachel's good, And when he said Rachel's good, he always meant one of two things. Either he meant she's a good wife, because the Rav was very clear. He said married women have it easy, because Hashem said their job description is Ezer Kenegdo, they know what to do. And he held that start, and he really felt that his daughters, he was proud of his daughters that they really fit that bill. And that they really, Bali B'tach and all the children, but he really felt that, when they were owning the Sayon, he really said they're good, he meant that it's difficult and it's painful and they're being torn apart by whatever the problem was, but they're strong and they can do it, and they really inculcated this B'tach, and he was very proud of them, and the boys too. But to me it's really interesting, he also really, he saw many women as having something to contribute to the Kehillah or the Kal, and he really encouraged them, not as talented women, but as talented people. And he made this effort there's this woman who had a blog called Jew in the City, and he really encouraged her greatly to do what she was doing. And there's a woman now in Chicago, who Stephanie Pearson Arderman. He sent her 1,000 emails at least in different things, and encouraged her that she was a writer and so to do things. Here in the shul, he was very, I don't know the word, but he respected and he really encouraged Mrs. Knoll, my own issues. Each of those women have hundreds or maybe thousands of emails from him. He really invested in them and encouraged them to really sort of fulfill whatever and give what they could. And it's worthy of note. And it went without, it's gone without saying, so I have to say it, although he did fight the get bill, he would bend over backwards. He would go across the world to save one agun. If he thought there was a chance of saving a woman, he would drop everything, all his art work and his whole life, and go wherever he had to go to do it. He really, something extraordinary, really, a stranger, I understand a stranger. I think what really was conveyed a little bit today was from Nechemya Malinowitz, how he was like a Balaliyah. He went stage after stage after stage, and he pushed himself, and he grew, and he grew, and he grew. He told me that he fell in love with Rav Noach Weinberg long before he ever met him, because there was a tape that he heard. The Rav Noach made a tape, and on the tape it said, this is Rav Noach said, following Mashal. if you see a 5-year-old child, and the 5-year-old child is learning how to read and write, that's so cute, that's so lovely. But if you come back when the child's 10, and you still have to go when they're 5 years old, so you know you're witnessing a tragedy. And if you see a 10-year-old child doing what 10-year-old children do, and it's very sweet, if you come back when they're 20, and they're still doing what they're when they're 10, so you know you're witnessing a tragedy. It's a tragedy. So Rav Noach said, if you're 20 and you haven't grown, your full-grown 20 capacity and kishron and abilities, if you haven't grown, you're still holding by 30, doing what you're doing when you're 20, that's an even bigger tragedy. And 30 to 40, a bigger tragedy. He really held that way. That one moment to Rav Noach, and he really, as you heard, he lived his life that way. But the Rav really felt that he felt his, and I guess every Jewish man's ikra growth is in his Talmud Torah. So the Rav had a Shiva about Talmud Torah. He said there were 2 parts to Talmud Torah in this context I'm saying now. There's the qualitative part and the quantitative part. Those are my words, not his. There's the qualitative part the quantitative part is easy. Quantity means you're just learning more. That goes without saying and goes on forever because the Torah is infinite. But the qualitative part is that you learn how to learn. You're learning how to learn better. You're learning how to think better. You're learning how to understand the sugya better, take it apart better. So he held that a person has to stay in full-time learning at least as long as he's in that stage of qualitative growth. He held that if you were still learning how to learn, then you should do full-time learning. And if you plateaued, as everyone does eventually, I guess, most people do eventually, and when you plateau, so then if you're going to leave, so then you can leave to go on to do whatever you're going to do. When I was 29, so I was learning by Rav Yitzchak Berkovitz's kollel, and Rav Berkovitz wanted to send me out to a position in London. And Rav Malinowitz was very against it. Rav Malinowitz had sent me to learn by Rav Berkovitz. Really one of the most... So they had a fight. They had quite like a vigorous fight if I should be going to Chutz La'aretz or not. And in the end, I did go, and Rav Malinowitz, he lamented that he had lost the battle for my soul. And it sounds melodramatic, but he was pained, I think, because he was pained, really. Because I left, he felt prematurely. Later on, when I came, after 3 years in London, he told me to come back there. He said, I was looking to come back there, it's wrong. He said, come back to Beit Shemesh, we'll have a shul, I have a shul here, we'll make a kollel. Murmusin came to run it, and we'll be chavrus like old times, come learn me. So I moved to Beit Shemesh to learn with him again. That's why I ended up here. So in that time, in the last 10 years, let's say, so he so many times said this phrase to me. He said, my life is over. For 10 years he was saying, my life is over. By which he meant, I believe, that the learning part of his life is over. He felt, kind of as Nechemya had really said, the next phase, the last phase, the third phase, whatever it is, he felt this was a different phase in his life. He really felt that he didn't have time to learn anymore, and it pained him terribly, and that the Kehillah work, in the art school work, even though I'm sure in the art school he learned who knows how many thousands of dakim and Rambans and Midrashim, of course he was learning the whole day long, but he felt that wasn't learning. Even though he felt that wasn't learning, he really felt if he couldn't take it apart at his pace, as he wanted, and to really plumb the depth of the principles at hand, that wasn't called learning. He said, my life is over. He meant that life. This was tzibur work, but it wasn't his ikr life. But I have to say to his credit, and I think everyone here knows that even though he said that, but the Rav continued to grow so much, and I think in the last 15 years, how he was mityaches with his family and his children and grandchildren, it's a different world from he grew, he changed. And at the shul, I ran the shul in the second decade from the first decade, if you recall, he really changed it. And certainly in the last 18 months, 18 months, when he's at the age of 65, anyone who has one eye in their head saw how the Rav, because of he saw what was necessary, he turned his entire way which related to the kill around and Yechidim around, really, that's certainly, Rav Jacobson has a hand in that and a schus in that, but really, Rav Malinowitz, he transformed his personality and the way he dealt with congregants 180 degrees and became so sensitive and so gentle from just in the last 18 months, which is extraordinary. And the growth that Halavai, who knows where he so long that even one that really Rav Malinowitz changes his demeanor extraordinarily as a tremendous bodily to the very end. I see Rav Malinowitz's work is right, so I'm going to wrap up a little bit here. I don't know if the Rav had a favorite color. I doubt it, highly. He did have a favorite food, which was hot dogs. He loved hot dogs, he hated steak, and he didn't have hot dogs on Shabbos because the Rebbe said it wasn't coveted to have hot dogs on Shabbos. He did have a favorite, he did have a favorite word, I think. His favorite word is ois gehalten. He really felt so deeply that a person needs to think things through and have a shita on, he had a shita on everything, but a person ought to have a shita on everything and stand up that they believe on. It did not bother him if you disagreed with him. Adarabah, he was so pleased if you disagreed with him, as long as you had a shita. He wanted people to be thought through, and that was really so much of his life was about having a cheshbon on why he did every little thing, and every word made a difference, which is why he was so extraordinary in art school. But everything, I'm sure, the children, I'm sure know most of all, everything had to have a shita, it had to be nothing. He hated expedience. He wanted to be principle. That has to be driven by principle, what's right or wrong, and Emerson. I'm going to read you, I'm going to end. Hashem was good to me. I did not break down once this whole thing. Hashem, so really, I'm going to read you, in the end, I want to read you one email that he wrote. This is from 2005. It's not an email to me even, but it's, I hear the Rav's voice and I want to end with this. The person wrote an email to the Rav saying, realizing that most people aren't really given to independent thinking is one of those things that takes a long time to realize if you're from certain circles. Along with realizing that, quote, independent thinking is not an absolute virtue that some of us make it out to be. I.e., this is the writer to Rav Malinowitz, it's possible to be a sheep and be a really good person. To which Rav Malinowitz responded, I must correct you. It's possible to be a sheep and be a good person. It's not possible to be a sheep and be a really as an inherently, authentically, and genuinely good person. Independent thinking, with very few instances that are forbidden by the Torah, is as close to an absolute value as there is. And he wrote in huge letters, underlined, italic, bold, why else did God give you that brain? The fact that let's finish this up. He says, the fact that the concept has become outlawed in certain circles is tragic. And, as Hashem runs the world, probably historically necessary, as many tragedies are. But they're still tragedies. Hashem runs the world. It's probably historically necessary, as many tragedies are, but still tragedies.
I'm going to Rav Yitzchak Berkovitz shli.
Pasuk says, "Vayitnu yimei b'chi evel Moshe." And the Malbim points out that the pasuk says, "Vayitnu yimei b'chi evel Moshe." All that stopped, all that was over, was the bechi, the weeping. The evil didn't stop. Klal Yisrael never recovered from the loss of Moshe Rabbeinu. Weeping, how long can you cry? Evil, that feeling of void that remained. Agav, with Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, Vayifku also B'nai Yisrael. And Rashi there, as well as Rashi in Bamidbar, contrast that with Vayifku also Kol Beis Yisrael of Aaron. And he says, with Moshe Rabbeinu was just the men. Aaron was the men and the women. Why? Because he brought Sholem ben Ishli Ishtoy. So the Maral and Guri Aryeh asked the Kasha, what, the women
did not mourn the loss of Moshe Rabbeinu? Just a man. Doesn't make sense. The women didn't feel a loss. He was the leader. If nothing else, he brought them the man. Says the Maral, this pasuk is not talking about how many people wept over Moshe Rabbeinu or Aaron's departure. The pasuk is referring to the quality of the Bechi. With Moshe Rabbeinu, it was one loss for everyone. They all cried the same way. For Aaron, in bringing peace bein ish li'ishto, there's a need for a personal relationship. There's a need for understanding, knowing how to talk to every yochid. The Bechi was kol beis Yisrael, meaning there was an able yochid, a different Bechi for every individual. Everyone lost something else. I think that these ideas, the end of the Bechi, but the continuation, that ongoing feeling of void, and an individual one for every person. Everyone had their own relationship with him. There's the family, there's the Gila, there's even friends. Rav Malinowitz, Zeichet Tzadik L'Vrocha, it's so hard to say those words. He was so full, so rich. His knowledge, his interests, his intellectual curiosity, the thirst for knowing absolutely everything about everything. And with depth, with understanding. Knowing something often shitchi, superficially. It was something he was just allergic to. He'd stop at nothing. If he felt you knew something he didn't, he would ask. Regardless of who it is that he was speaking to. And he learned to develop that personal relationship and find just what it is that interested others. What were they looking for and what did they need? So there's a void. There's a real void. And that's what I'd like to address. This Malbim, the diuk in the pasuk is rather strong. I don't think it's just a matter of stating a fact. It could be that this is a challenge. There's another Maral, Gurari. Yaakov Avinu, when Yosef disappears, Vaimoyin Lisnachem, he couldn't be Makabel Tanchumi. Says Rashi, why not? Because there's a gzeira of a maze to be Mishkach ben Alev, but Yosef was alive. So he couldn't forget. So the Maram asks, so why did Yaakov Avinu figure out that he must still be alive? If he realized that nothing had changed, he feels the same way as he did when he first heard the news. Then obviously Yosef's still with us. Says the Maral, Yaakov Avinu thought that that's only when it's a natural process. B'teva, it's the way it goes. But you can fight it. He suspected that he did not allow himself to be misnachem. He suspected that he was preventing himself from going through that natural process of getting back to normal life. Perhaps the fact that the Yemei Evel Moshe, the Fi, the Malvim, never ended, is a challenge. One has to allow it to happen. But in what way? If we study what happened after the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, it becomes obvious that Klal Yisrael did not move on in the way they were supposed to. And let's understand, Vayimoin Lisnachem, what is Nichum? What is Nichum? Nichum is telling people, not so bad. We find the word Vayinochem Hashem al hara. The word Lihisnachem means to change one's mind. It's learning to think differently. After the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, the void was felt. The question is, does the situation call for a new way of thinking? With Moshe Rabbeinu, we find that when the Sultan, after what they thought was 40 days, after Maimon Har Sinai, when the Sultan had Klal Yisrael thinking that Moshe Rabbeinu was gone, what happens to Klal Yisrael? They created Ego Azal. Just mind-boggling. 40 days before, they had all reached the level of Nevuah. Every single man, woman, and child in Klal Yisrael heard Anochi Elohim Mipi Agvura. They reached the level of Nevi'im. 40 days later, they bow down to a golden calf. They say, El Elohecha Yisrael Asher Lucha Meretz Mitzrayim. What sense does that make? So Chazal make it a little better. Lovdu Yisrael, Avodah Zorah, Elohat Lemarayis, it was Taiva. And that's not a kasha. 40 days after Nevuah, 40 days after hearing Hashem. True, it was B'matona. It wasn't a slow growth process. It was through the 49 days from Yetzias Mitzrayim. It was accelerated. But they reached the level of Nevuah. They were so dying for Efkeris that they're willing to accept anything. And the Kuzri writes, Moshe Rabbeinu was something they held on to. You know, Hashem's up there. We can't imagine him. We can't pretend we can imagine him. He's without any definition whatsoever. And yet we're supposed to have a personal relationship with him. And our entire lives are lived to be mizdadik. Such a difficulty. Moshe Rabbeinu to Klal Yisrael served as an everything. Sure, they knew he wasn't Hashem, but he was the manifestation of everything. Everything they believed in and everything they had to do. When he was gone, they needed something. And the Kuzri makes it, they needed something concrete and they wanted a physical manifestation of Hashem. the way everyone else learns it. They were just totally at a loss. They just lost their darga, their clarity altogether. Moshe Rabbeinu was irreplaceable. And what happens after Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter? The halachas that were nishtadchu. Asnil ben Chas had any matzah b'pupulo. Klal Yisrael forgot. The Torah's Moshe was forgotten, so much of it. And then what happened? Yeshua, and the Psukim make it very clear, Yeshua's whole role was a replacement for Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem tells him, if you'll be like Moshe, you'll go in his way, you'll be like him. Yes, V'yavdu es Hashem, kol yemei Yeshua v'askenim. And after that, we read in the beginning of Shoftim what happens. Time and again, as soon as Yeshua and the Skedim were gone, they went to the Holazorah of the locals. So Hashem was Ma'amid Shoftim, and it says when the different Shoftim, when they were nifter, so Klal Yisrael again went, same thing, they went back to Holazorah. The whole era of the Shoftim was that way, and it didn't stop there. So they asked Shmuel HaNavi for a melech. And Shmuel HaNavi has a tiny to them. Why are you asking for a melech? Vashem Elokeichem hu malkech. Shmuel HaNavi is telling them, Klal Yisrael, you're supposed to develop your own personal relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom to the point of Hashem Elokeichem u'malkechem. You don't need a leader. Hashem's your melech. And what happens? What happens after they got their melech? The entire tkufa of Bayis Rishon. It's so difficult to understand. If it was a good king, they were great. If it was an evil king, back to everything again. Back to all the others. What kind of people are we? To the very end of the Churban, Klal Yisrael, for that entire tkufa, after the P'tira of Moshe Rabbeinu, till Churban Bayis Rishon, never ended the Yemei Evo Moshe. They never got out of it. They wanted Moshe Rabbeinu. They needed someone that would take his place, and without him they couldn't do anything. On their own, they went nowhere. Bayesheni was different. Bayesheni, especially after the end of Nevuah, it was a whole different story. Bayis Rishon, it's unbelievable. Bayis Rishon. They had Urim V'Tumim. They had Nisim Gluyim all the time. They had Nevi'im walking among them. If you lost your sheep, you went to a Navi. He told you where they are. Nevertheless, that whole period, unless the leader was the one who led them to tshuva, didn't work. All right, so Pasech HaShtei HaSivim. They also came to the Beis HaMikdash alongside their Avodah Zorah. Bayesheni was missing so much. And there were no Nevi'im. After the Nevi'im were gone, the Tkufas Nevi'im stopped. Bayesheni was the development of Torah Shebal Peh as we have it. It beginning of the Tanoim, first the Zukas, the Tanoim. Klal Yisrael was observant. Yeah, there were Amei Oretz. There were Talmidei Chachamim and Amei Oretz, but Klal Yisrael by and large was observant. So much so that when it came to Churban Bayis Sheni, they didn't know why it happened. They couldn't understand why it happened. Roisik and Torah and Gemilas Chasadim. Yes. And the answer they got was, among other things, Ben Allah Chaveiro, that neglected that. And because of their dargi, it was so inappropriate that there was a Churban Bayis Sheni. But at least they had learned the lesson. At least they had learned the lesson. We've got to learn the lesson. One of the most outstanding features of Rav Malinowitz, of Chaim Levracha, was the seriousness by which he took responsibility. The concept of responsibility. He took responsibility for this kihila so seriously, even before he came. I remember in our discussion, should he go, should he not go? It wasn't the question is, does he need another job or not? The number one thing on his mind was, can I take responsibility for such a kehillah? Do I have the ability to take this kehillah with all its color and the different backgrounds, and the different ideas of life, and get everybody to learn and take the Torah seriously? Because that's the responsibility of a man. He took responsibility for himself from the youngest age. Heard from his friends as a kid. He was brilliant. He was a genius. Everybody was a genius. We all know that when it comes to Torah, being a genius is a liability. Because geniuses don't have to bother applying themselves. You can get by. You can be the best in your class and do very little. He took achrayus. He took achrayus to learn Kol HaTorah Kula. There was no one telling him to. It wasn't especially in style. That wasn't the done thing. And to know Kol HaTorah Kula on his level, as a London, as an Amkin, took a prize for himself, for building himself in every way. Worked on his midas, it's his responsibility. Worked on his own abilities. Never stopped working. If we're all to learn from him, what was there a void? But maybe the message is that we have to start taking responsibility for ourselves in a more serious way. Of course, what he saw as his most important accomplishment here was how he got everybody to learn. You know, he was so out of the box. He did so many things that were within the society considered outrageous. Of course, with his tkifas, if it was right, it's to be done. What are they going to say? That's their problem. relationships with Rabbanim from all the camps. Politics didn't mean nothing. He didn't know what they do to him. He didn't care. At one point he said, listen, I'm a nobody. I'm beneath the radar. Perhaps it was the other way around. He was such a somebody that he was above the radar. He was such a somebody that anyone that knew him knew that this is a person you don't put in fear. But he was so out of the box. But I think what's most important about his being out of the box is that when he did things in the box, it wasn't because he was towing the party line. His kanos for Talmud Torah was not because that's what our society is about. His love for learning was not just, you come from the world of yeshivas, that's the talk. He, with his independent thinking, understood how crucial Talmud Torah is. And not just Talmud Torah, not just knowing, understanding. Today, information is available to everybody. Just Google everything. The difference between information that you get on the web and learning through a sugya, there's no comparison. Learning the Dvar Hashem, changing the way you think, being an informed Jew. This makes the difference to what your home looks like. This makes a difference to your openness to working on midas and accepting tochacha. Makes a difference to your marriage. Yes, it was clear to him. Any husband here that would learn seriously would have a better marriage. His wife would be able to see that. Everything he taught was thought through. He wants everyone here to take responsibility for their learning. For real. The quantity and the quality. Knowing that this is going to make all the difference. Just who you are, your stature as a yid, your stature as a human being. Because I'll say l'cha Rav. He's irreplaceable. Come on, what you had was a luxury. What kil in Chal Yisrael? What kil in Chal Yisrael has someone of that stature? He's irreplaceable. Aseh l'cha Rav means the role that a Rav has to play is something that's such a necessity that you've got to accept. Make for yourself a Rav even though you've seen something bigger. But don't make the mistake that Chal Yisrael did. Of now expecting someone else to take care of you. And you follow him, sure you need a Rav. Everyone needs a Rav. But a Rav that is not going to take the place of your own responsibility for yourselves. For your learning, for your midas, for your goals in life. for your expectations of your own families. Men, women, Rabban Hashem took him. Rabban Hashem gave you a challenge. He gave us all a challenge. We've got to take responsibility for ourselves. You need a Rav to make sure you're being honest. You need a Rav to check up on you. But ultimately, no one else is responsible for your growth. Nobody. And yes, you've tasted what it's like to know everything, to want to know everything. You've tasted what it's like to see a real honor. Totally selfless. You've seen how much happiness that puts on one's face. You saw an example of someone who had so much to brag and believed in himself and wasn't interested in taking credit for anything. You saw what it meant to be true, to be emes to the core. That's the challenge that's left here. We'll have to be misnachem. We have to think differently. We have to realize that it's a new tkufa. We have to move on from the past. We have to stop focusing on the void and focus on this new challenge where Hashem Elokeichem u'malkechem, where yes, you've got to take responsibility for your relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. Personally, I lost a unique friend. One that I relied on to do all the dirty work. Everything that had to be done, I knew I could count on him to make it happen. One I can count on to understand what had to be done. Clear thinking, unaffected by influences of personal ambition, and certainly not of fears. What's this one going to say and what's that one going to do? Clear thinking, reliable. And the person. And the person. The warmth, down to earth. No ceremonies, no pretending, uncomplicated, real, loyal, reliable. A word is a word. to say that one has to learn to replace the friendship with something of one's own. The only problem I have is maybe there's a message that I have to develop some courage. But it's frightening. For Rabbanim that dealt with him, and unlike all of us who complain about the needs of the tzibur, and how they're not being taken care of, he was the one that made it happen. And he had dreams. And he was also so practical. So practical. How do you go about it? Who are the personalities that should be involved? And the time no, you can't go on crying forever. You got to get on with your life. With the challenge, and with the hope that we'll all rise to the occasion. There's still a void. We dive into the Rosh Hashanah. You should give us all the wisdom, the strength, to be able to move on and grow. And be inspired by this unique Adam Gadol that we have the schus of having a relationship with. And let all of that inspiration bring us to bigger places. And that'll be an added schus of sending him higher and higher and higher. Because there's no limit. And then we be zeicha to reach that point in time when we won't have to go through these things anymore. The Rebbeinu Shem will end the pain. And the world will be a different place. The Gula Shalema, where we understand the first stage of Tchiyas HaMeisim will already be in effect. And ultimately Olam Haba, which is just all good. It's the only tefillah is that we should be zeicha to be able to see him there in Olam Haba, because he's going to be all the way up there. Hashem should have the Gehillah should continue to flourish, grow as a unique Gehillah. It is unique in so many ways, and that too should be a schus. I just want to add, I spoke about how in Bayesheni they got the message. Their only failure was in the Benam Lachavera. Aside from all the responsibility that everyone has to take for themselves, there's got to be an extra chizuk to make sure that this neighborhood, this community, this Gehillah, remains united. And that everybody who learned to respect everybody else. Because there was this one gadol who was so much bigger and still respected every one of you. May you continue to respect one another and learn to harmonize and work together to help bring better days in the Gula Shalema of Mir.
Please ask of the people in the basement to put the chairs underneath the tables, and the people downstairs in the hall to please stack the chairs in stacks of 10. Thank you.